Reddit, what's the most dramatic, trashiest story you know? So this local guy, Robert, owns a lawn care business. Susie and Robert were married, but Robert was an abusive drunk, one of those macho types. They had 3 kids, Jeff, Tommy, and Marcy. But there were a lot of rumors flying around that they weren't really Robert's kids. Susie had a twin brother, Jamie, and they were really close. Like, secret twin language type of shit. Jamie lived in the trailer right next door to theirs, and he was very protective of his sister, spending a lot of time at her place. There are a lot of rumors that they're having an incestual relationship. So anyway, Robert goes out hunting one day with his redneck friends and dies in a horrible accident, which a lot of people believe Susie arranged with her cousin Lance, who was one of Robert's hunting buddies, and who has also since been accused of having sex with Susie. This leaves Jeff to inherit the family business, but Jeff's uncle Stanley, Robert's brother, suddenly comes forward and is all, "Jeff is illegitimate and the company should be mine." And then Robert and Stanley's younger brother Ryan is all like, "Stanley is right, but I should inherit the business because I went to community college and took a half a semester of business courses. I'm the man to run the show." So a couple of lawsuits are filed, but before Ryan's can even get to court, they find his murdered body. The prime suspect is Stanley, but no one can prove it. Meanwhile, Ned, one of the foremen of the company and Robert's best friend, has also been murdered, and everyone knows Jeff did it, but no one says anything. So Ned's son Robbie takes over as foreman, and the first thing he does is steal one of the company's mowers and a trailer and starts a new company. This doesn't please Jeff at all, so he has his buddy Walter kill Robbie. But then, out of nowhere, Jeff is murdered, and his uncle Tyler goes to prison for it. So now Tommy runs the company, and everything is a ducking mess because by now everyone is pretty well convinced that he's really his uncle's son. I tell you, I am so glad I moved out of that trailer park. I should probably make a throwaway for this, but whatever. My biological dad cheated on my mom, they were also married at the time, he cheated on her with his 15-year-old cousin. When the cousin found out my mom was pregnant with twins, my sister and I, she committed suicide. My great-grandmother got pregnant when she was 14 and my great-grandfather was 32. And married with 2 kids already. My great-grandmother's family didn't want him to be acknowledged as the baby's father, so the baby, my great-aunt, was given my great-grandmother's last name. Then, my great-grandmother got pregnant by him again at 16. This baby, my grandfather, also got her last name. At some point my great-grandfather left his wife, but they never officially divorced. My great-grandparents eventually lived together, unmarried with 2 kids, for several years in the late 30s early 40s until my great-grandfather killed himself by poisoning his own coffee with rat poison and drinking it. Grandma threatened to shit in the turkey if we didn't let her watch Jeopardy. My uncle brought a woman to Thanksgiving other than his wife. She was crazy. A practicing witch who would divine things about us on the spot and ironically accused my other uncle of having an affair. She got drunk and groped me in the coat closet, then tried to kiss me saying, "If only I were young again." I was 16. One of my aunts found out her husband was sleeping with her brother. She found one of her husband's shirts, from a vacation they took, with cum on it in her brother's bedroom when she went to the bathroom. I wasn't surprised though, to be honest. Wait, your uncle by marriage was having an affair with your uncle by blood? Yep. Faked a heart attack. It was very surreal. And her husband was so embarrassed. Here's what happened. Grandmother didn't like my dad very much, and she picked a fight with him, so he decided that he was going home. When grandmother M realized that my stepmom, her daughter, was going to take dad's side and go home too, she yelled a lot and then, as a last-ditch effort, dramatically clutched her chest and collapsed very carefully. It was outside and I guess she didn't want to bump her head or muss her clothes. Dad offered to call 911, grandfather said it wasn't necessary, and when grandmother realized no one was taking her seriously, she opened her eyes, allowed grandfather to help her up, and went inside with him while fake sobbing. Holy shit, my grandma did this at Christmas a couple years ago. She has been banned from Christmas ever since. We have a tradition where we always eat crepes Christmas morning. My mom and I probably spent 2 days in the kitchen making 3 different types of crepes, crepe casseroles, a whole bunch of yummy things. My grandma helped us make them, and this has been a tradition for years. Come Christmas morning and everyone comes downstairs to open presents. We are all opening presents, and someone notices my grandma is going crazy around in the kitchen. We go over to see what she's doing, and it turns out she's decided that our crepe breakfast wasn't good enough and she threw it all out. Instead she was going to make the breakfast she wanted, lard-stuffed French toast. My mom got super upset with her, and at breakfast everyone made a point to only eat the crepes we had scavenged. My grandma then proceeded to fake a heart attack because we were being so mean to her. She fell to the floor clutching her chest, screaming she couldn't breathe and someone needed to go get her sleep apnea machine so she could get oxygen. Literally everyone just pretended not to notice and kept eating breakfast. She didn't talk to anyone for the rest of her week-long stay, and hasn't been allowed at family events since. My aunt got drunk and then naked. She ran down the street stark naked after hitting on my cousin's boyfriend. Her kids saw it all. They were all under the age of 12. She then cried the whole next day because everyone was mad at her. I called Child Protective Services because she tried driving drunk with the kids. A few weeks later she got drunk at the same house by the pool. She lost balance when she stepped into the pool filter. She first hit the pool but caught herself with the hand that was holding the glass beer bottle. The shards of glass bottle ended up inside of her cheek and neck. After hitting the ground and passing out, she rolled into the pool and would have died if others hadn't fished her out. She is still an alcoholic. She's not invited to Thanksgivings anymore because she now does meth. Every Thanksgiving with my mother-in-law, my wife and I host. About 15 people come, and everyone brings side dishes as is the custom. Not her mother. She only brings stuff for herself. She proudly announces that whatever she brought is just for her. It's not for diet purposes, because she eats all the other food too. When dessert makes an appearance, she will make a big scene about wanting the first piece instead of letting the kids get theirs and get out of the way. One year there was a big argument about the corner pieces of a chocolate cake. She went first as usual, and cut herself 2 corner pieces and took them both. If you want to make little kids cry, do that. She wouldn't give them up though. Also, she treats our guest room and bath like a hotel. When she leaves she takes the toilet paper rolls, the Kleenex box, paper towels, soap, etc. My brothers got into a fight. My oldest brother slept with my younger brother's new wife, who was like 20 years younger than him. They got into a fist fight and broke through the wall of their dad's trailer. The police had to be called. And that's why I stopped going to family evening. This was by no means an unusual occurrence, just the first thing that came to mind. My Aunt Janie took a bunch of Xanax, and who knows what else, on top of a jug of Carlo Rossi that she had hidden in her room. She then proceeded to steal every spoon in the house while the rest of us were drinking and playing games. Every single spoon. We found them in her purse. Why just the spoons? This isn't exactly tacky, more like unintentionally hilarious. I invited a couple of my friends to Thanksgiving dinner at my parents' house around 15 years ago since they didn't have any local family. They wound up sitting near my grandmother, who rambled for a solid 5 minutes about how when she was a kid her house was full of pussy ants. Some weird grandma story that I can't exactly remember now. But my grandma wouldn't stop saying the word pussy, and my friends and I just sat there sipping our wine, barely making eye contact and trying not to die. My dad, rest in peace, was in the early stages of Alzheimer's but had always been a bit of a perv. But as his condition presented itself, he would say things that were shocking beyond description. For example, one Thanksgiving, 10 to 12 people, in the middle of dinner, as he was just starting to develop symptoms, people were talking about a woman friend who was going in for surgery. My dad spoke up, and in a loud voice said, "What is she going to do? Get her rectum and vagina reversed so that anal sex will be easier." He wondered why no one laughed at his joke, then went back to eating his turkey. The rest of us made a note to have him see the doctor on Monday. My uncle and grandfather don't have a good relationship, but were tolerating each other because Thanksgiving. My uncle was cooking lasagna and my grandfather decided to help, so he grated the cheese. He did this in another room, because the kitchen was full of other people cooking. We have a big Thanksgiving, maybe 15 to 20 who love to eat. I had brought in the cheese and everything was going fine. Flash forward to dinner time, the food is coming out and as tradition dictates we always start with lasagna. My grandfather made some joke like, "I know you hate me, but at least I'm great," and shit hit the fan. My uncle literally went to a rage, and was yelling at everyone because we didn't tell him he was using tainted cheese. Then said F# at #it and proceeded to flip the table all the food was on. Then my grandfather called him outside to settle the score, which resulted in two grown men fist fighting in the backyard, culminating with my granddad getting thrown into the pond we lived off of, and slicing his leg on a jagged rock that he landed on. The rest of us ordered Chinese food, and kicked my uncle out, and my grandfather refused the hospital because he had a little too much holiday joy in him at the time. Surprising, my uncle hasn't come to holidays in years now.
Here comes the money.
Here we go. Money talk.
Here comes the money. Money, 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 money.